What is up? My name is Matt Workman for Cinematography Database, and in this video we're going to be talking about the top 5 reasons that a camera cage is useful in production. And I want to let you know that this video is sponsored by Manfrotto, but this cage is made by Wooden Camera and Manfrotto, and this information is relevant to any camera with any cage, just so that you know. Number 1, you have more options for mounting accessories. Now, a naked camera, you basically have the hot shoe and cold shoe. That's one of the only ways to really mount additional accessories to it, but as soon as you put a monitor or a light or a mic or something like that, you really don't have any other options. When you use a camera cage like this, it has a bunch of 1/4-20s, 5/8, and this specific Wooden Camera and Manfrotto top handle is pretty cool. If you loosen this thread right here, you can flop the handle down, which makes it a little bit easier for storage and portability. You bring it back up, and there you go. It has this little stopper at the end, which will keep the handle from falling off if you torque it too hard, and at the top it has another cold shoe adapter. Long story short, if you want to mount more than one thing to your camera, the camera cage will allow you to do that. So yeah. Number 2, if you're using a camera cage, it's probably going to give you the option to add a base plate with either a 15mm or a 19mm rod system. So in the case of the Wooden Camera / Manfrotto camera cage here, what you actually get stock is this. So this is the complete camera cage here. You get the top plate, the side rail, and the bottom plate. And you'll see that they left the entire right side empty or uncovered, and that's to keep this lightweight, and it's allow you to be able to get to the card slot and the battery without having to take the cage apart. That was the goal with it. On this particular cage, this comes with a Manfrotto base plate built right into it. So if I wanted to, I could mount this directly to the Manfrotto tripod, like that. So that's pretty cool if you want to keep it super slim and run and gun. But the point of number 2 was that I can add this 15mm base plate, which is a separate purchase in this case, but they do interface together really easily. We just slide this bad boy back in there. And now I have a 15mm rod system in case I want to add a follow focus or a matte box or a battery plate on the back. So right now I'm going to add a follow focus made by, you guessed it, Manfrotto. And let's just finish building this whole thing out. So I'm going to add this small HD 702. So this is a semi-built out rig here, and the whole thing is still pretty compact. And with the rod system, you could also add some handlebars or a shoulder mount, but for me, I wanted to keep it relatively small like this, and I was doing a lot of like hip shooting and putting it on the tripod, because if you actually go watch the commercial I shot for Olives and Grace, it's a relatively small store, so I didn't want to build the rig out huge, and we were working with non-actors, so a rig like this is pretty small, but I can still have all the tools I need as far as looking at exposure, focus, all that stuff. Put this back up here. Very good. So number 3 is that the cage protects the camera itself from wear and tear. So let me take this off again. So when you're shooting with a naked camera like this A6500 here, and you're going to be doing a lot of basically handling of the camera directly, and this will over time add some wear and tear to the actual body. There'll be scrapes to it, you might dent it, but with a cage, what is something that is nice about it if you own this camera is that normally when you put the camera down, none of the actual camera body is touching. It's the less expensive accessories that are touching the ground. In general, you're handling it by the handles. You're not even touching the lens necessarily. And all these things, I think, in the end, actually help protect the camera a little bit. Now, I think some people would say, and I kind of don't want to say this about cages, is that if you dropped the camera, the cage would take the brunt of the fall. If I did like a drop test with both of these, I think that they would probably equally get screwed up as far as like the internal electronics and things getting jostled around. But I guess if you were handling this, you kind of bumped a wall or you dropped it from a little bit, the cage is going to take a lot of the hurt, but I still think these cameras are pretty fragile, so dropping them in either case is a bad idea. So number 4, this is kind of related. When you're dealing with cameras like this, and although this is the RX100 and it's different in that it's more of a point and shoot than the A6500 or the A9 here, you're still dealing with this kind of semi-fragile thread at the bottom of the actual camera. And I know people that have actually had threads that are too long and they've screwed this in too tight and threaded through the body and broken part of the camera. So with the camera cage, you're gonna make sure you have the actual right size thread. You're going to be very careful about mounting the camera to it. And then from there, when you're screwing on base plates and attaching it to camera rigs, you can kind of go to town wrenching them in and really tightening them up. And you just have a much more rigid and stable connection to your tripod plate or whatever you're rigging it to than if you were rigging directly to the body. Also, I show myself out. So the fifth and final reason here, this is not so much for the DPs or the operators or the directors who own these cameras or even rent them. It's for your assistants. When you work with a camera cage, it makes cameras, especially like SLRs and mirrorlesses, a little bit more like what most assistants are working with. And I'm talking about assistant camera people. If you have a cage like this, you can switch the camera out, which especially on this cage, this can work with an A7S, an A7R, an A9, which this is an A9. I think this also works with the GH5. This is kind of a modular all-in-one cage for these smaller mirrorless and SLRs. And you can put whatever camera body you want inside of it, but all the accessories around it that you're used to working with or your assistants are used to working with will function properly no matter what the camera and kind of no matter what the lens is. I also want to mention that this particular cage has a little foot at the bottom, so if you are using a Metabones or the wooden camera PL adapter, that this has a support for it. And in that case, if you have a PL mount on it, this basically is in the configuration as far as accessories the same as a Red camera or an Alexa Mini. You can strap whatever you want on it, wireless follow focus, wireless video, all that good stuff, and you're ready to go. So those are my 5 reasons that a camera cage is helpful for production with mirrorless and DSLR cameras. It gets pretty accessory heavy quickly, and the cage gives you the infrastructure to be able to add that stuff to it. If you like this video, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. I am doing a lot more gear related things. I promise that that is going to lead to better content in the future, and hopefully if you were considering buying a cage and you were on the fence, this video helps you with that. And even more specifically, if you were considering a cage for the A7S or A9 series of camera, that you now know about the wooden camera Manfrotto Camera Cage. Until next time, you guys get out there and plan better, shoot better.
Thank you.